Hello and welcome to Down and Dirty with Darci. I'm your host, Darci Smith, also known as Career Coach Darci. We are here to get down and dirty about careers, uncovering salaries, wild stories, backgrounds, and more from guests with some of the most eccentric professions each week. This podcast is presented by Onomy. Hello and welcome back to Down and Dirty with Darci. Today I have Chloe Daniels here with me. I'm going to do a little bio with her in a little bit so you can get to know her. But because this is all about careers, I'm going to start it off strong by making her tell us about herself. So we're going to jump straight into the career column. So typically in our career column, we go through like questions that people send me and things like that. And the number one question is always, how do I answer? Tell me about yourself. So I just want you to do it just like as you would if this was an interview or someone you met at a bar. That's what I always tell my clients. And just like dive straight into it. So Chloe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm like, oh man, the pressure's on knowing that this is an interview question. But the way I describe myself is I own a financial literacy company that's dedicated to turning people into being overwhelmed and concerned about their money to investors who have a plan and are excited about their future and know how to manage their own money. So that's essentially what I do in a nutshell, but I do that as a content creator. I do that as a course instructor. And then we've also got a podcast, blog, YouTube, all the things that come with being a content creator in the space. So that's kind of like a 30-second, 10-second elevator
perfect.
speech.
Yeah.
This is who I am. And it's funny because I've had to think about that question a lot from the perspective of like dating. Mm-hmm. Like when I was dating, it was like, okay, how do I describe what I do so that one, it doesn't sound like an MLM, and two, it's like it's not Googleable. Like I don't want people to find out who I am and my online presence and things like that. But I feel like if I just put I'm a business owner, people are going to immediately think, oh, she's an MLM. It's like, no. I actually do other things that has nothing to do with MLM.
Right. No, that's so funny. And part of this too is like, I think the pressure of this question is more than just tell me about yourself in the sense of like your career and your plans. And like for you, you're actually like selling, I mean, especially you're on this podcast, right? So you're having to tell us like what you've worked on, what you do. And in the sense of like this question in an interview, it's definitely like, we just want to have a conversation. So as soon as you tell me some things that I can then talk about and ask you questions about, it just makes it like way easier. So just in terms of this, the career aspect of it, I appreciate you sharing that. And now can you give us a little bit more about you in terms of like, tell us where you're from, tell us, where you live now. I feel like you have kind of a nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah, so I've been a nomad for the last year. I spent the last 10 years in Chicago, and once I quit my full-time job to pursue Clo Bare Money Coach and everything that is Clo Bare Money Coach full-time, I was like, why am I still in Chicago when every single winter I'm like literally screaming in my car, like, why am I still living here with the snow and like the shoveling, all of that stuff. And even though I love Chicago, the winters were really starting to wear on me, but I kept telling myself, well, I can't leave because, I have such an amazing job. It's easy. It pays the bills. It pays me really well. But once that was no longer in the picture, it was like, all right, well, where do I actually want to live? And I didn't really have an answer for that. So my dog and I packed up our apartment and I moved most of my stuff into my parents' basement. And we started traveling around the country kind of at a really, really slow pace just because I am a Taurus, which means that I really do like routine, even though I always push myself outside of routine. But the kind of compromise that I did was like, all right, we're going to spend like at least a month in most of the places that we go. And I finished the road trip around the country late last year. And now I am preparing to move to San Diego for a bit. And then after I move to San Diego, I'm actually planning on heading to Tucson, Arizona, where I think I might actually settle down. So we'll see what happens.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that's a big move. Like to say you're going to settle down.
I know. And it's like settle down question mark. Like I think I'm going to settle down. But I was talking to my boyfriend about this not that long ago. I was like, I can't ignore the fact that every time I get on Zillow, I look at houses. Like there is definitely part of me that really wants to buy a house, that doesn't want to do apartment living anymore, doesn't want to deal with like the nuances of living in like a busy downtown. Like I kind of want that part of my life to be a little bit more settled, especially because, being a business owner, things are just always crazy. So it's like I'm searching for peace in the ways
Yeah.
that I can get peace right now. And to me, I think that means having more space and just knowing that I have like a place that's my base, you know?
Right. Yeah, totally. My other question for you in terms of the career world is, I was talking to you before this, but I'm so curious. So you worked in a corporate job before you got into what you do now, which is like helping people learn about money. But I want to know, what is like the worst, maybe give us like either a horror story, worst story, embarrassing story from your corporate days.
Yeah. So to give a quick like rundown of what I used to do in corporate America, I have been everything from like a fundraiser to a communications consultant to a project manager. And my last, I would say my biggest horror story was from when I was working as a development and communications manager at a nonprofit. And you always know it's a warning sign when the company like tells you its value is that we treat everybody like family. Like we're just a big family here. And I was
Yeah.
too young. I was too young at the time to like see that as a red flag. I was just like, great, cool.
Mhm.
And we really were all very much enmeshed. It's like you knew about everybody's sex life, you knew everybody's like gossip with
Oh
every person in the
God.
office. And then not only that, it was like senior leaders were related to each other. It was like, oh, the head of HR, the what is it? CSO, chief of staff, or the chief, well, however you say that, the chief of staff
Yeah, chief of staff.
is
Mhm.
is related to the head of HR, or the senior vice president of marketing is related to the chief of staff who's head of HR. That's how it was in that particular situation. And I had an issue with the senior vice president of marketing and communications. She was wildly inappropriate in terms of like her behaviors in meetings towards the people who worked under her. And like, for example, sometimes she'd like in front of a meeting with the entire department be like, oh, this person's just grumpy because she's on her period. Like
Oh
saying
my
that to an
gosh.
entire room of men and women. But
Wow.
on one, and to give you more perspective, I think I was 24 or 25. I was working really closely with my director of development in really like launching the foundation and doing all these really fun fundraising initiatives. And he was like a guru in a lot of ways. He was a really, really talented fundraiser, but he had an attitude and he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Well, the senior vice president of marketing communications did not like him and really wanted to do everything she could to get him out of the company. And one day I was like just sitting at my desk, getting my job done. She comes over and she's like, I need to talk to you for a second. And she pulls me into his office where he's not there at the time and starts telling me, we're going to have to fire him. I don't have any other choice. I'm going to have to let him go because of this, and this, and just like pulling out all these random things. And I was like, well, you can't do that.
What?
Like this foundation's going to fall apart if you fire this person. And then when I'd say that, she said, well, I'm really worried about his health. He was just diagnosed with diabetes and he ended up in the hospital, and like basically sharing all
She's
of
like
these
telling
things
you
about,
personal.
yes, like telling all these things about my boss. And I'm just like this
Oh no.
-year-old talking to this 50-plus-year-old woman, thinking like, how is this even remotely appropriate that you, who report directly to the CEO, think it's okay to like dump on this like lower level person and essentially
Yeah.
try and manipulate me into agreeing that he needs to go. And so it ended up being this whole thing because she was related to the head of HR. And I was like, well,
Of
I don't feel
course.
comfortable going into the head of HR and saying, hey, deal with your aunt. Like this is inappropriate. This is not okay. So it was a giant disaster. And it was just like one of the examples of like nepotism and that family culture and all of those things. And it just makes me so grateful to not have to deal with anything like that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. So did he get fired, or what, did he get to stay?
He didn't. He did not get fired. She
Okay,
eventually
good.
left because so I ended up leaving about, I want to say 6 to 9 months afterwards, because
Mhm.
I had actually gone to the CEO because I didn't feel comfortable going to the head of HR. I explained what was going on and how inappropriate I thought it was. And so he took it to HR separate from the chief of staff. And took it to the manager level and was like, hey, need you to start an investigation on this, but you're going to report to me on this specific investigation. It took a really long time. She never ended up seeing any kind of repercussions. And so eventually I left, and I was like, when I went in and told the CEO that I was leaving, because it was a small company, so it wasn't like, oh my God, how were you talking to the CEO? He was mad at me. He was mad. He's like, why didn't you give me more time to figure this out? But she didn't even end up leaving until she left on her own accord. So it was just like, you didn't do anything. Nothing's improved here. Like, yes, luckily my boss was able to keep his job, and he, you know, got promoted and ended up being like executive director and things along those lines. So that worked out, but it was just such a toxic culture. And I remember when I left, one of the reasons not only that I left was because of the culture, but it was like when I took my job at a consulting firm, I was working with a bunch of engineers. There was no drama. It was engineers.
Yeah.
They don't even like, they barely will, they will barely
talk.
say hello to you. Yeah, they don't talk. I was like, I'm never going to know about any of their sex life. I'm never going to know like who they hate. Like, we're barely going to say hello to each other. And that sounds great.
I love that. I feel like everyone listening is like nodding their head, because you know everyone that's either a coworker or a boss. And to share a story that someone literally DM'd me the other day, she was saying that basically her boss, she's super new, but they were taking her out to lunch and like talking to her, and the conversations were about who they like and don't like in the office. Like that, those are the conversations at lunch. They were like, so like we typically all hang out, but like Joe doesn't come to the happy hours and like whatever, he's kind of annoying. And like this person talks a lot, and like it was just straight gossip time. And she was like, I felt so uncomfortable, but I had just joined. It's like, what am I supposed to do? I already am thinking like, I got to get out of here. This is never going to be a good environment. But it's like, you feel that feeling in the interviews when you start to get that like connection with someone, you're like, oh, and then once you're in it, you're like, oh, now I get it. Like they hired me because they quote unquote like me, which of course that's going to happen, but you shouldn't be talking about like other colleagues to a person that was just hired. I was shook.
Especially
I was reading the DM. I was like, what? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, especially it's like one thing if it's like a coworker. Like, sure, it's still not, you still don't want to do that. You don't want to bring somebody in and immediately unload the tea. Let them discover things for themselves.
Yeah.
But for it to be somebody who's in a position of power, that just says a lot about the culture, because like that boss thought that it was normal enough and okay enough to bring that to a conversation with a brand new employee. That's I hope they just goes to show
they're
that
like, should I
won't
get out of there?
They won't, they'll know that they can't trust anybody on that team, and just keep your business to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I think we went way too far down the rabbit hole already, which I knew was going to happen, but I did write a very, I'm impressed by my own self, very great bio. So I got to read it to you and just let you take it all in. Okay. So here we go. Buckle up. In 2017, Chloe started The Bear, a blog that allowed her to open up about all things money, dating, therapy, loneliness, financial goals, everything she was going through at the time. By the time 2021 hit, Chloe quit her job in marketing and communications to pursue her passion of teaching people about money full time, specifically teaching them how to take control of their money issues and start letting their money work for them. She is a personal finance coach who has managed to go from $70K in debt to increasing her net worth to over $300K in 3 years. She's also on track to retire with more than $3 million if she didn't even put anything more in investing past today. Something that really gravitated me towards Chloe is her realness and authenticity, because I saw her online, and then when you meet her in person and when you talk to her, she's literally the same person, same version of herself that you see online, which I love. She has a podcast called The Money Bear and a blog, and her very popular course called The Lazy Investors Course. And P.S., she has a free course on onomy, similar to me. That's kind of how we got connected. Welcome to Down and Dirty, Chloe Daniels.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I was like, wow, thanks, Stars. I'm blushing over here.
Anytime. Just let me get into your website. I will create a nice little bio. I had to like fact check a few things, but
you know what? It was gorgeous.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. And I'm going to start with something a little bit different today. I have these tarot cards because I am really into tarot. I'm really into tarot. I actually went to a tea and tarot party on Sunday, which like it's exactly what it sounds like. You just drink tea and read each other's tarot
You have
cards.
such cool friends. What? I'm like, I need new friends. That sounds amazing. No offense to my friends.
Um, okay, best part is all of them, all of us that went together, I met all of them on Bumble. Like Bumble
What?
BFF.
Okay, that's so
Yeah,
cool. And
isn't that
actually
so
that's
cool?
really comforting, especially since I'll be relocating. At least then I can like trust Bumble BFF. Okay, good to know.
You should. You should use it. I've had the best experiences. I mean, you'll meet people and it's kind of awkward because when you're ghosting a friend, it's different than ghosting like a dating partner. So
Yeah.
you like both just have to just like not respond or like, because you can't really say like, hey, we met for coffee, but I didn't like you as a friend. Like that sounds terrible. So you just kind of like both just kind of ghost, but it's normal. It's normal.
Yeah.
Maybe you like each other's
Yeah.
Instagram posts. That's about it. But yeah, I have a very Bumble BFF. If you want to be a sponsor, big fan, big fan. Okay, I'm shuffling the cards. I'm shuffling the tarot cards, and we're gonna do a 1 card pull just to kind of give you your card of the day is basically what it is. And if you want to share, please feel free to once I tell you what the card's about, and then be like, oh, that resonates with me because of X, Y, and Z. We would love that. So here we go. For all the
Absolutely.
listeners, we do have a YouTube, so you're welcome to watch this as well. But if you're just listening, I just cut the cards and I just pulled. What if I pulled like a freaking shitty ass card? That would have been terrible.
I know, like it's gonna be like the death card or the devil card.
Yeah, yeah. This is the card. It's the 2 of Cups. It's a really pretty card, and I'm gonna read you like kind of just what it means because I mean, unless you already know, but I have to like go to my little
cups.
I have
I
a little
think
book here.
Cups usually have something.
It's
to
usually
do with
love.
Yeah.
It's usually love. So the 2 of Cups is connection, love, and romance. Say hello to the much adored 2 of Cups. This card appears. You can anticipate new love to be heading your way, and it means romance, but sometimes it points to the birth of a dear and lasting friendship. Either way, the connection between the 2 of you is going to be pure and honest and solid. Does that resonate with you at all?
I don't know. I better tell my boyfriend. I'm sorry. New love is coming my way. But as you were reading it, I was like, Darci, it's obviously our new friendship. Duh.
Oh my God. Duh. Well, I was already thinking that like, cause okay, you've talked about Hinge. You call him Hinge Man, which I love.
I do.
But like the story of this person that you're dating is just wonderful if you would like to share.
Oh yeah.
But it's fairly new that you guys like are actually official,
got
right?
Back together. Now? Yeah. So my boyfriend and I dated back in the pandemic times. We were a pandemic relationship, and it was before I was Clo Bare Money Coach. It was like I was still Clo_Bare, but I had the blog that was like talking about mental health and relationships and stuff that I was kind of dabbling in. But we got together and things like, I don't know if you had a pandemic relationship or not, but pandemic relationships are a little different. Like it was like it was the only person you could hang out with for the most part, and like, you know, since you had so much free time, all of a sudden you were like just hanging out a ridiculous amount in comparison to like who you like. For me, when I am dating somebody, I hang out with them like tops 1 to 2 times a week in the beginning because it's like,
that's my cat.
I just don't have time. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And but we were like staying with each other for like weeks at a time. So it escalated really quickly. But we had really differing like things going on at the time. Like he was still very much figuring out his career and his life path and what he wanted to do. I was in that time, like I think it was January 2021, I started dedicating my time to Clo Bare Money Coach and was like, well, I'm gonna try this. Like I'm gonna actually figure this out. And doing that with a full-time job, it was just like every waking hour was dedicated to Clo Bare Money Coach. Like Chloe Daniels no longer existed. It was Clo Bare 24/7. And so that's something that I've definitely struggled with for most of like while I've been Clo Bare, is like making time for my personal life as well, because I love Clo Bare Money Coach so much. But specifically when it was so new and it was like, you know, when you're really starting to rise, it's like you got to take the urgency of that moment and just ride with it. And if you don't take advantage of it, it's like, well, you may miss this wave. Now, granted, I don't want to like spark scarcity, but it is to an extent true in the social media world. It's like you got to hop on it while you can. because you don't know how the algorithm's going to change. You don't know how things are going to differ, especially if you're like in the beginning. Now, when you're more established and things like that, it's okay to take breaks and things like that. But anyway, and especially in 2021, the algorithm was entirely different. It was like you were going viral all the time and new followers all the time were just like streaming in. So anyway, that's all to say that I didn't prioritize the relationship at all. And like, even when we were trying to like work on certain things, it was like, I was like, I just don't want to. Like, I have so many other things going on, and like Clo Bare is my priority. And so eventually we ended the relationship.
We love an independent woman.
Yeah. And I was like, I gotta be honest with myself. And like, it wasn't fair to him, you know, that he's with somebody who's like half in, half out, but like expects him to be fully in. So I ended that relationship, and then, you know, we went our own ways. We remained friends, and like would still hang out because he's I call him Logan's dad, because when I got her, I also started dating him like pretty soon after that. But once we reconnected,
is that a dog or a cat?
She's a dog. She's okay. My squishy goddess. Yep. I have a cat too. His name's Cash. Cash is he's a new member of the family. But anyway, so back in November 2022, we like met up so that he could see Logan. I was back from the road trip, and just a lot of things that were like an issue before were kind of no longer an issue because we had both gone and worked on ourselves separately. And so it was like, hey, do you think like maybe you want to, maybe? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, all right. And so from there, we were just like, let's try this out again. And it was just, it's been really good this time around. So that's kind of our journey. He lives up in Chicago.
That's amazing.
We are in a long distance relationship. Yeah, it's all it's good. I mean, I am a notoriously single person, so I don't fully know how to be in a relationship. It's hard. Like, I don't understand how to prioritize other people.
Yeah, right. Well, long distance is probably easier for you then, but
it is.
But question about finances in the dating world, because I think this is just fascinating. So like my boyfriend and I do not share our finances at all. Like I have my own account, he has his own account. We actually don't share a bedroom. I have my own bedroom, he has his own bedroom.
I love that.
We are like super separate. Yeah, and like that's the way I like it. And I know my best friend, she combined her money with her now husband, but they were just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. And I was like, oh my goodness, but they went just fully in together and they just have one account and it works for them. Where are you on that spectrum? And I know you guys are fairly new again, but like where would you want to be just being a financial financial coach? You know, it's like,
so
what do you
I'll
think?
say that I'll say my general thoughts on it, and then my own personal, like how I approach it. My general thoughts is like, obviously everybody's going to be different in terms of like what works for you guys is going to be different. But whether you decide we're going to completely combine things or not, even if you decide to completely combine things, as a woman, I cannot emphasize enough maintaining some amount of independence. Like, have a separate bank account. Like, there needs to be this like backup money that is available. And honestly, I think men and women benefit from that. But like, there's just so much financial abuse out there. You've got to make sure that you're covered. And like, I get it. Everybody thinks like, oh, we're so in love, I trust them so much. It's just like shit happens. And if you ever need an exit plan or an emergency fund or your own line of credit, like you don't want to give up those layers of independence. Period. End of story. No one should be entirely reliant on somebody else financially. In terms of how you want to manage that, I think it's fine if you decide, we're going to go fully joint, or we're going to, keep our separate accounts and have one joint account for joint expenses. That's fine. However you want to do it, just make sure you always have something that is yours, that you always have that independence. If they fall off the face of the earth, you will still be okay. In terms of what I personally do, so Tarek and I are very different in terms of income levels, and that doesn't bother me. But it is definitely one of those things where I've had to be like, all right, if there's something bougie I want to do, I got to either be okay with doing that by myself or paying for him. And it's like, sometimes I'll just want to do it by myself. Sometimes I'll want to bring him along for the ride, but we are not combining any finances at this point. I don't think we would ever fully combine finances. My preference would be to both maintain separate accounts for everything except for a joint account for joint expenses. So like rent, when you live together, it's like you put in your portion. And I also don't believe in a 50-50 split either. If somebody is making significantly more than the other person, it's like, well, I think you gotta put in more like a percentage of like what makes sense. That's like an equal percentage,
that's what
not
we do.
split 50-50. So, so that's how I would personally do it. I know everybody's different. I know there's a whole segment of TikTokers that are like, a man should pay for everything. And like, because of wealth inequality between genders. And I get that too. But it's just like, you gotta be able to communicate it and figure out what works best for you. But the only blanket rule that I would say to everybody is you've got to maintain some level of independence.
Yeah. What about, this might be too deep, but what about your thoughts on prenups? How do you feel about those?
100% better be getting a motherfucking prenup. Sorry, I don't know if we're supposed to curse. You might have to bleep that out, but
oh yeah,
like,
no, we can curse.
Without a doubt. You're like, it's okay. Oh, yeah. I am so team prenup. I think that a prenup should be just as standard as your marriage license. It's like, oh, you're going to have because the thing is like you have a prenup anyway. It's whatever state you live in. They're going to decide what happens to your assets. They get to decide. Yes. So a prenup is you having a say-so in what happens if you get a divorce, which the divorce rate is still around 50%. This at least makes it so that both of you are protected in the event of a divorce. So it's like, I think there's this like stigma that people think like a prenup only protects one of the people in the party. And it's like, no, you go in together and a lawyer is not going to sign off on anything that like wildly benefits somebody and completely like destroys the other person. That's not going to happen. That's the benefit. However, in a divorce where you don't have a prenup, that situation where it only benefits one person could absolutely happen because you had no say-so in the prenup. So to me, and I will say the number one excuse I hear for people who are like, oh, we didn't get a prenup because it's like, well, we didn't have anything when we went into this relationship. I'm like, okay, first of all, there's post-nups. Secondly, what happens if you start a business? Do you know that business in most states becomes 50% their property? Are you willing to risk that? Like, are you okay with that? So again, it's just one of those things that I think should be standard and normalized. I feel very passionately about it just because it's a big issue. And almost everyone I've done. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I just recently talked about it on my Instagram. Like I met with a lawyer recently who I'm building a trust with. Ryan and I are going to do a trust together and like talk about like where each of our things will go and all that stuff. And to your point, it doesn't need to be when you have a bunch of assets. Like it can just be when you're working at a company and you have a 401k, like that type of stuff. Or, I mean, it can be the smallest amount of things and it can grow with you. And the same with like, you can do a post-nup afterwards and like, just protect yourself. And I want to make it very clear that it has nothing to do with who has more money or not. Because right now, technically Ryan makes more than me. And I'm the one that's like, let's get this shit going. Like, I know that it's important no matter what level you're at to be protected for yourself. So
100%.
I think it's
I even
super
had,
important.
I had somebody once comment on one of my prenups saying like, I'm so glad I didn't have a prenup because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I've been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And if we get a divorce, I would have been left with nothing with a prenup. And I'm like, no, you do understand that a prenup would make sure you aren't left with nothing.
Have something.
Like,
exactly.
It's to make sure that if you stayed at home for 10 years while he went off and made his career, you are compensated for that, because you know how hard it is to get back into the workforce after taking time off to raise your kids. Really fucking hard. So you especially need to make sure that you have a prenup. So exactly, like, it's like if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're somebody who's taking a break from work, if you are making less money, you're still going to want something in place to protect you so that, you're not stuck with a worse situation than you went into it with. To me, like I said, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. I know we're both passionate about this topic. I mean, I obviously am passionate about the interview space and like the confidence level behind that. And there's something a lot to do with confidence in money and money talk. And I have these like open, candid conversations with Ryan and with my friends. Like they're probably like uncomfortable because I make them talk about money with me. And I'm telling my friend all the time, you better ask for a raise and things like that. I'm curious, like, what your number one, if you could, give someone advice, or like, obviously you talk about money all day, but like, just for like simplistic reasons, if it's one thing, what should they have? Is it a 401k? Is it matching? Is it a Roth? Is it and like, obviously explain what these things are, but give us your like, hey, if you don't know anything about money, just like do this one thing and like help yourself.
That's a really good question, because it's like, to me, it's very much divided between like the money management side of things and the wealth building side of things. So can I give two?
I'll allow
Just
it.
two? Thank you. If I had to give one, I would say you need to know where your money is going. Like, it's such a basic thing, but if I had to, like, that would also be my money management tip, is so many of us think we know where our money is going. We think we could tell you, we could rattle it off, that like, I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, I just keep track of it in my head. I'm like, okay, but how many times do you come to the end of the month and you're like, where did all my money go? My guess is it happens more often than you think. And and I've coached thousands of people at this point. Every single time I help somebody go through their spending, they are always surprised. Sometimes they're surprised with how well they're doing. That's pretty rare. But most of the time, people are like, holy crap, I had no idea I was spending that much money on this thing. And they're shocked. And you cannot switch from this mindset of, I don't control my money controls me. Like, it's just this ethereal thing that I can't master, or I'm bad with money, to the mindset of money as a tool and I get to decide how to master that tool. You're not going to be able to make that bridge between those two beliefs unless you start treating your money like a tool. And that means, for at least a little while, tracking where the heck it's going. Like, even when I was doing one-on-one coaching, I would be like, listen, we're going to set you up the plan. I'm going to put you on a budget and all that crap. But you're going to fail. I know you're going to fail. And that's okay. I want you to fail. What I want you to do the most, though, I was like, the only thing I will be disappointed in if you don't do is if you do not track. If you don't spend 30 days looking at where your money is going, because I want you to start becoming more mindful of your money, and I want you to see that money is a tool, and it begins with paying attention to what that tool is doing. So it's not a sexy or exciting tip, but it is life-changing, because you will either realize, holy crap, I have money. It's just not going to the things that I want it to go to. Or you'll realize, holy crap, I need to make more money.
Right. Yeah, that's actually very, very good. And then what's the other piece of that would be like the growing of the money. What did you call it?
Yeah. So growth. From the wealth building side, because like, to me, it's money management and wealth building. They work together, but wealth building is a completely different mindset, honestly. It's still money as a tool, but I would say, from the standpoint of wealth building, you have to get over this idea that you can do it without investing. So many of us come along the lines and we think about investing and we're like, oh, that's not for me. That's something that somebody else does. That's not something I could ever learn how to do. You have to invest. It is literally not optional if you ever want to retire. You cannot save your way to money. You cannot hoard your way to money. You literally, period, end of story. If you ever want to stop working someday, you have to retire, or you have to invest. So it's it's such a so many women especially hoard their money in like a savings account because we don't think we're capable of investing. But I promise you, it's easy. It's really not that difficult. I studied English and Spanish in college. Like, I certainly never would have thought I'd be a person who's dedicated to like teaching people how to invest, because it really is that easy. And then once you learn how easy it is, you're just like, wow, why wasn't I doing this so much longer? Like, why didn't I start this 10 years ago?
I feel very similar. And it's interesting because I grew up with a father that was constantly investing. He handled all of his own money. He was always on his Schwab accounts. He was always the TV, watching all the everything possible. And I was like, I think it almost like made me kind of shy away from it a bit because I'm like, oh, it was like too much information at once.
Too much work.
And
Yeah.
and I realized that like if you just drown out the noise of what they're trying to do is making it complicated, so then you don't really do it or you don't know how to do it, like drown out that noise and then just pick one thing or pick something. And a lot of people, and I'm obviously not the money coach here, but a lot of people just start with like, what do you spend your money on, right? Like I go to Lululemon all the time. So like I bought some Lululemon. I go to Starbucks all the time. And like, I'm not saying throw all your money into one place, because that's definitely not the way to do it. But I'm saying just to get your feet wet, like even if it's $50, just to feel like,
Yes.
I did it. There it is, you know? And then
100%.
get like pick one thing to educate yourself, right? So obviously we have Chloe here and she has a course. So it's like, if that's your choice, but I'm sure she'll also sit here and say, if it's a different course, sure. Something that is going to be like, here is exactly how I can get started. And it drowns out the rest of the noise, educates me on like something I can sit down and do tomorrow. That is, I mean,
100%.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
but
and that's,
I feel like,
well, and yeah, to shout out the onomy course again, I give you 2 ways that you could literally get started right now, today, with 15 minutes of education. The whole onomy free course is 15 minutes long, and I literally give you actionable steps to get started right freaking now. So
amazing.
There's no excuses. Like, and you can get started for as little as $1. You can literally get started right now without knowing anything. It's easier than it has ever been before to start investing. And there's a way to do it for everybody. Like you said, you know, some people will want to use a robo-advisor or target date fund for the rest of their life. Some people will want to design their own lazy portfolio. Some people will want to pick individual stocks. My goal is always to educate you on the options so that you can decide what to do for yourself, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think, and two, it's like I said, like watching a course or doing something, and I'm big on education in general. Like I'm kind of one of those people where I'm like, don't do something you don't understand. So there's that part of it, right? And I think so many people grab onto that of like, oh, I don't understand all of it, therefore I'm not going to invest. And instead I'm like, okay, but pick something and then get knowledgeable about it, understand it, and get comfortable with it, and then start there. And then you're just going to kind of keep growing. Or maybe you're like, I actually don't like this, but I like knowing that my money is compounding and it's investing. So maybe I do get a, like, you know, like you said, you can pick one thing and let it ride. Right. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's so important. And
yeah,
just coming from the aspects of all of us, especially females, right? But like it's not stuff we learn in school unless you go through like financial, like specific education. And even so, it's a little bit like,
even
do you
then,
really learn it?
like, yeah, I mean, I have CPAs in my course. I have people who studied finance, because it's like they don't teach personal finance. Personal finance is very different than, you know, what you're going to learn in college, unless they happen to offer a personal finance course. And even then, they're probably doing like Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey, which is like not exactly helpful. So it's just one of those things where I think that is why there's some powerful messaging in the money space that it may not be necessarily the best thing to do. Like I immediately think of, oh, you know, don't invest until you're debt free. It's like the reason that that's been such a powerful message over the last decade, 2 decades, however long, is because it's simple. It's like people are able to focus on that one thing at a time. And so it really narrows things down. I am not a supporter of, you know, don't invest until you're debt free, but that same kind of thing where you're talking about, if you feel overwhelmed and you feel like this is a mountain that you are not ready to tackle, pick one thing and like do that. You'll realize it's not as scary as you thought it was. And then you'll adjust as you go. That's the beauty of investing is, you know, it's not like you make one choice and then you have to stick with it for the rest of your life. You can make changes.
Right.
You can make as many changes as you want. Unless you're like YOLOing all your money on like crypto or AMC or GameStop, you know?
Yeah. What's your favorite budgeting tool? Like I hear about a lot of different ones, so I'm just curious what you like to recommend.
Yeah, so I love the app Cleo. Shout out to Cleo, because it makes it fun. It's like a beautiful app. It's like sassy. It'll roast you for your spending habits. You can like use the AI to be like, hey, Cleo, roast me. Or you can also ask it to hype you up. But it's also just a really simple app. So it's just going to track what's coming in and what's going out, and you get to categorize it. But what I will say for people who are starting out, who are at ground zero, and they're like, I'm in this stage of being overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. And I feel like my money controls me and I have no, like, I can't control it. I generally don't recommend starting with an app. And the reason, can you hear my dogs barking in the background?
Barely. It's all,
Okay, good.
yeah, I
Well,
like it. I like
now
it.
everybody's like, oh, the soothing sounds of Logan and Rue barking. Anyway,
Yeah.
I was like, I can pause if you need me to. Um,
No, you're good.
but the reason that I don't usually recommend people going immediately into a budgeting app is because it takes away the mindfulness part. And again, like we were talking about earlier, you have to go on this journey from never paying attention to your money or being too afraid to look at your money to I'm in control. This is a tool and I know how to use this tool. The only way to do that is to incorporate some mindfulness and to really understand where your money is going. And if you're using a tool that's tracking everything, there's no mindfulness to that except for when you go a month later and you look and you see, well, did I go over budgeted or did I not? Did it categorize things correctly? Doing it
Yeah.
manually with a Google Sheet, or even there's some beautiful budget workbooks out there. Doing it that way is going to incorporate it into your everyday, and it's going to make you think about your money every single day. So it's, again, looking at this huge thing. Oh my God, I don't know how to manage my money. I don't know how to budget, and breaking it down into what are you going to do today? What is the budget for today?
Mm-hmm.
How am I like tracking my money today? Which I think makes it a lot easier for most people.
Yeah, I am curious because my podcast is a lot about like how people get into the careers they get into, and you did mention that you were an English and Spanish major in college. So how did you shift from? I understand the wanting to do the blog, like that makes sense to me, right?
Mhm.
Like I want to share, I want to help people, I want to talk about my struggles so people can relate and understand, and like a platform of that sort. Where did that shift and like I'm so curious if there was like one person where you're like, you helped them, or obviously it was probably yourself, or yeah, when did that happen to where you're like, I'm going to make something that's like accessible to everybody and they can be better with their money?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've had a weird career path for sure. I started teaching English in China. And before that, I was like managing accounts at an ATM company, like done fundraising, done communications project, like so many weird random things, but they all like meshed me into who I am now. And when Clo Bare became Clo Bare Money Coach, Clo Bare originally was a mental health and relationships blog. That's it. 2017, when I launched it, I had just read You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. And I just remember in
Mm-hmm.
that book, her being like, just do something, just get started. You will figure it out. And I was like, I don't know what else to do except for I'm just going to start a blog. And so, literally, I think the night that I finished it, it was like a Thursday. I bought a Weebly blog and I just started clobare.com. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write about. I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm just going to use it as like this place for expression. And originally it was supposed to be anonymous. It didn't, I didn't know what I was doing. So it ended up not being anonymous. But about 4 people read that for the first like year. And by
Love that.
year I had a dedicated following of approximately 4 human beings. My mom and my boyfriend. I'm just kidding. But anyway, Clo Bare coincided with my journey through trauma therapy. And I kind of ended up using it as this like thing that would hold me accountable for like explaining the journey and making sure I was doing the work. And as a lot of the things with my mental health started to shift and heal, I really couldn't ignore the fact that money was absolutely impacting my mental health. Like, money, when you don't have it, when you're struggling with it, it's a huge cause of stress and anxiety and depression and just feeling like you're trapped and not in control of your life. And that was true for me. And so the whole premise of Clo Bare was to like own my shit and fix it. And I was like, I'm ignoring this massive part of my life. So by October
Mm-hmm.
2018, about a year after Clo Bare started, I was like, all right, we're going to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out. I'm tired of living the way that I've been living. This isn't getting me anywhere. And so I just started sharing everything that I spent my money on every single month on the blog. That was my approach. I was like, I'm going to embarrass myself into spending better. But I didn't know what I was doing. I through doing that, I started finding other blogs and people who were writing about personal finance. And the more I learned, the more I became obsessed with it, because to me, it was like the golden ticket to freedom. It was like, if I can figure this out, I'm going to have options. I'm going to have freedom. I'm not necessarily going to have to work a standard 9 to 5. I could take a year off to travel the world or something along those lines. And that motivated me enough to just keep going. And I discovered the FIRE community pretty soon after, like, discovering just personal finance in general, which those who are listening who don't know FIRE, FIRE is Financial Independence Retire Early. And I was like, these people are not making that much more than me, and they're retiring in their freaking 30s. And I was so jealous of that I was like, well, why don't you just try it? Why don't you just try to do it too? If they can do it, you can too. And so it just kind of like compounded from there. And eventually I want to say it was like June 2020. Yeah, June 2020. I had a person in Chicago her name's Saya Hillman, and she owns Mac and Cheese Productions, which is a production company that just like hosts random events, like the most random events, to essentially get adults out into the world doing things that make them feel uncomfortable, like meeting new people, like making friends. Like that's kind of the whole point of it. And she had met me at one of her events, or I had met her at one of her events, and I kind of told her what I was doing. So she started following along and saw that I kept sharing my budgets every month and talking about it to, nobody. And she was like, hey, I think you have I think you have a skill that people need help with. Would you like to teach a class on budgeting? And I was like, sure.
Oh my gosh.
Never. I was like, I don't know how to do that, but like, I'll figure it out. And I spent hours upon hours just putting together this class, and like I loved every second of it. And the class was just amazing. Like I think we had like maybe 30 to 40 people who signed up and showed up live, and like it was my first class, and it was just fantastic. I felt so high afterwards.
So
I couldn't even fall
cool.
asleep.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience, and I wanted to offer it for free. I remember I was like, I can't charge people for this, and she's like, let's charge people the standard rate. I always charge people $32, but we'll do a pay what you can option. And she'll still remind me to this day. She's like, remember when you didn't want to charge people for like the education that you were providing? And so anyway, after that free class, folks wanted to work with me one-on-one. And so I just like turned into a money coach, and I was like, I guess we're doing this. And I just stumbled along, not really knowing what I was doing, kind of casually, until 2021, where I was like, after having a few clients, I was like, I think I want to take this seriously and like build a business and like see if I can make this something. And by October 2021.
Sorry.
I was just going to say,
sorry.
No, I was just going to say by October 2021, I was able to quit my job. So January was when I was like, I'm going to take this seriously. I had like 2,500 followers at the time. And then by October, I was like, all right, we're quitting. We're going to do this full time.
I love it. And you just shared, the reason I was going to interject was I saw a post recently that you hit like a new milestone, like $100,000 of revenue in how many months?
5 weeks.
5 weeks. That's crazy. That's such a huge milestone. Oh my gosh. Like anyone listening, like just start anywhere is really the whole point of this podcast at this point, regardless of if you're like, okay, I'm getting some encouragement to do the thing I want to do, whether it's like sell something on Etsy or like starting a business, or it's, I actually want to get a little bit more like better about thinking about my money. Like start something like tiny and just let it build, because I feel like it just keeps coming back to that. And I didn't realize I was going to go this route today, but I feel like the universe is telling me to like keep harping on that for some reason. So I feel like, and if hopefully this is helping somebody, but yeah, I mean, that is amazing. Like, I just want to like clap because it's so cool. And
I agree 100%. I mean, it's like, it was a combination of being so excited about it because I love helping people with money. It's literally like, if I don't know if I would have stuck with it if I hadn't started off with 101 coaching. I don't do 101 coaching anymore, but 101 coaching, you just get this like injection of joy every single time you help somebody.
That's
because
me.
It's like, yes, because it's like, what a big deal it is to get a new career or help them negotiate a higher salary or figure out money. It's like money is some people's biggest stress, and to help them with it, it was just like I was addicted. I don't do one-on-one anymore, but it's still like whenever I get to do like a testimonial with somebody who's gone through my course or something, I'm always reminded that like, how cool is it that I get to make a lot of money, but also I help people so freaking much. Like, that is, I cannot imagine having like a better situation where it's like what I do matters and it helps people, and it also, it also brings in a lot of money. So I'm grateful.
100%. Yeah, completely agree. No, I love it. I'm like, I love feeling the inspiration. I wrote down 2 would you rather questions because they're very important. Number 1, would you rather have $1 million right now or be able to teleport?
Oh shit. Damn, I would teleport. Are you kidding me? That's priceless.
Okay.
Teleport.
Yep.
Absolutely. I can make $1 million.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. So I'm glad you took the bait. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, she's going to be like, I can make $1 million. I'm like,
like I could make $1 million, but like last time I checked, nobody could make me teleport. So yes, 100%. Right? If I had teleporting skills, everybody would want to work with me. Everybody would want to buy me something or hire me. I don't know.
I'll be there in a
experiment. Yes, they'll just experiment on me.
I love it. Okay, this one's also very important. Would you rather date a short king that understands and respects and enjoys talking to you about money, or your perfect dream, like sexy ass man who is terrible with money?
Ooh. That's a really hard one. Oh, shit. Am I attracted to both of them?
No. For the sake of this question, no. It's a short, ugly king.
Okay. No, I would definitely go with the one I was attracted to, without a doubt. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then you're going to be like,
not sad about
babe,
it.
I'm handling the finances. Just shut your
I'm
pretty
like,
little
that's
mouth.
why I'm like, listen, I do my own finances. I don't need to worry about yours. If I want to bring you along on my trip, don't even worry about it. But yeah, no, I would take, you have to have attraction, like period, end of story. But granted, that's why I asked the question, am I attracted to both of them? And you were like, well, in this case, let's say no.
Okay, wait. Well, what if it was like a very attractive 5'3" man?
Oh yeah, no, I'd be down. That'd be fine. I've dated.
Okay.
So I'm 5'6". I have dated so many short kings. Like the man who I would say had, like, this is such a side tangent that nobody asked for, but you're getting anyway. The shortest guy I've ever gone out with was 5'2", and at the time that I dated him, he had a mouthful of braces, not Invisalign, full ass braces. He was 30 years old, but that man had so much swag and confidence.
5'2"?
I didn't give a fuck. I was like, this is like one of the coolest human beings I've ever met. I was so attracted to him. I was like, it doesn't matter. To me, it's like, it's your personality. It's how you carry yourself. It's that confidence. So like, to me, the height thing doesn't matter. Like, sure, if I was like, ideally, I want somebody who's this height, sure, but it doesn't actually matter to me.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I dated a 5'7", and I distinctly remember at one point, literally we were walking like in the park, and I was like, hey, I was like, we were kind of like kissing here and there. And like, I don't like when I don't have, if my neck doesn't hurt, like, I don't like that. So I literally like guided his hand up onto the curb, like at the park, and was like, why don't you stand here?
Oh my gosh. You know, he remembers that. You know, you're the villain in some of his stories.
I'm an awful person. I literally remember even saying like, let's get you some height. And I like put him up there and like put my arms. Oh man.
Did he die? So how did he react? I
mean,
he's like,
I was kissing the man, so he couldn't say anything. So there we were. And like, we just,
oh my God, that's so funny.
But yeah, relationship didn't last too long. So maybe there's that too.
I wonder why. He's like, I suddenly have a complex.
Oh my God, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. But
Oh
yeah,
God,
I mean,
that's
Ryan's
hilarious.
5'9". Like he's considered short, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah, Tarek
Love you. I think he's here.
Tarek is like, he'll always when I met him on Hinge years ago, he was like listed as 5'10". So of course he's 5'9". And I'm like, he'll always be like, am I a short? He's like, am I a short king? And I'm like, you're an average king. Like, you're perfectly normal.
Yeah, you're average. I
You're
think
just
there's something about
average.
yeah, and maybe not even a king, but that's fine. We'll just let you have it.
You're a king, for sure,
I
Tarek. If
love
you're
it.
listening to that,
Oh yeah. Yeah, because he will be. Hello. Okay, where I mean, I think we've said your name a lot in this podcast, but we're gonna keep it rolling. Where can people find you? Thank you so much for coming on Down and Dirty. I've had the best. I could keep going, but I have a feeling that our producer's probably like, are they gonna shut up ever?
they're like, well,
So
I'm still talking. They knew what they
yeah,
were doing getting us both on this call.
I know.
I'm everywhere at Clo Bare Money Coach. So Bear is just spelled Bare. We got a blog, clobare.com. But I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. So come find me there.
And she does some pretty sweet dances.
Every once in a while, I bust out the moves. They're not very good.
There every once in a while.
I just to remind everybody who I am.
Yeah, I like it. And her stories are fun. And she, like I said, is so authentic and like the same person that I assumed she would be when I met her, which is just so refreshing. So thank you so much for coming on. This was the best. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to that Onomy podcast. Onomy is a creator-led educational platform that teaches you the things you wished you learned in school so you can thrive in adulthood. Onomy lessons are completely free and they're taught by some of your favorite creators from around the internet. Head to onomy.co to start learning about things like budgeting, investing, taxes, how to thrive in your relationships, how to find your dream job, and so much more. That's onomy.co, onomy.co. See you there.